Hello and welcome to another episode of Creating the Future of Higher Education, the 2026 podcast of the American Association of University Administrators, where we speak with established and emerging visionary higher education leaders in advance of our national conference at Cleveland State University on October 19th and 20th of this year. My name is Tim Jansa. I'm a leadership and organizational development coach and a proud member of the AAUA Board of Directors. And I'm honored to introduce this conversation here today. Today, we'd like to broaden our perspective a little to give you a preview of what you can expect from our conference in October. And I'm excited to be joined by three individuals who are making it all happen. First, my colleague, fellow board member, and chair of this year's conference committee, Mr. Matt Roche. Secondly, and very importantly, the president of Cleveland State University, Dr. Laura Bloomberg, whose institution will be hosting us in October. And finally, Mr. Eytan Wurman, founder and CEO of CommonTime Pathways, who, in addition to hers, is one of our two top sponsors of the 2026 conference. All right, Matt, let me start with you as the chair of the conference committee. Before we go a little bit into details, would you mind telling our audience about the conference, some logistics, and where they can register?
Hi, Tim, certainly, and thanks for hosting us and allowing us to preview the annual conference. As you mentioned, we are going to be at Cleveland State University, my home institution, October 19th and 20th of this year. Our theme is realizing the higher education value proposition. This is timely as higher education struggles with the public perception and institutions are struggling with enrollment cliffs, tighter budgets, and increased regulatory oversight. We'll dive in a bit later, but this year we will focus on the innovative approaches, mission-centric storytelling of institutions, leadership strategies and succession planning, and other strategies to reclaim the narrative and show the true value of our institutions provide to our communities and to our learners as a whole. Logistically, we made some strategic changes to our conference this year based on feedback from last year's conference and surveys from our attendees. The first thing that our attendees will notice is that we have gone from a 3-day event that had half days on the front and back end to 2 full days to easier accommodate travel. The biggest thing that we made, though, is an adjustment on affordability with today's market. For conferences within a higher ed, I think we are competitively priced and maybe one of the cheapest out there or most affordable. For our members of AAUA, the early bird rate is $450, and the early bird rate for non-members is $625. This includes 2 breakfasts and 2 lunches, as well as a cocktail reception sponsored by the Higher Education Resource Services, better known as HERS. Additionally, we've partnered with a hotel that is almost directly across the street, less than a quarter mile, the Crown Plaza, Cleveland Playhouse Square, and they have given us a great rate of only $129 per night. To register, please visit our website at aauA.org/conference. Now I want to jump over to Laura to talk about Cleveland a little bit. I'm a native Clevelander. You are a Cleveland transplant. And so from our conversations, I know you have fallen in love with Cleveland in your time here, and you're heavily involved in a bunch of different boards and in the promotion of the city. So I'm hoping you can tell our listeners who may not be familiar with Cleveland or maybe even skeptical about coming here, what makes Cleveland special and also how great it is in October.
Well, thanks, Matt. And it's my favorite question to answer, actually. As you said, you're a native. I moved to Cleveland in 2021 after being recruited and I told the recruiter, "Are you kidding me? I'm not going to Cleveland, Ohio. What?" And then I got here, and like so many people I've met have absolutely fallen in love with a city we didn't fully understand until we got here. So you're right. I'm very embedded in not only at Cleveland State, of course, as president, but in the community. And one of the things that came to mind for me as you were talking, Matt, about the conference is my work with Destination Cleveland, which is kind of like the Chamber of Commerce for Cleveland. But it really is looking at how we tell the story of Cleveland. And what is amazing to me is that in conferences regionally in the Midwest over the past 2 years, feedback about the conference location itself has consistently been higher for conferences in Cleveland than in other areas. And I won't name all the cities, but comparable cities and larger cities, including my hometown of Minneapolis, that people get here and they love it. The Rock Hall, the waterfront. And so Cleveland in October is spectacular because unlike for me, coming from a way north in Minnesota, October was close to winter. It was cold. Here, you got all the beautiful changing season colors, but also summer-like weather. I love it. You mentioned that the conference hotel is the Crowne Plaza right in the heart of Playhouse Square. And I think it's really important to note that Playhouse Square is a gem. So for the people listening to this who might be inclined to want to stay an extra day, check out what the performance schedule is like in Playhouse Square while you're here. You might want to take in a show. It is the largest theater district outside of Broadway. And in addition to hosting Broadway shows, there are events going on in one of the 9 beautiful old theaters in Playhouse Square. And it's literally in the community where the conference hotel is, which is just, as you say, a hop, skip, and a jump away from campus. So I could go on at length. You got to stop me because I'm a huge fan.
I might have to plan to spend a couple extra days in Cleveland after the conference.
I'm telling you, you should. It's going to take a full day just to get through the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That is a great intro, and we actually have strategically partnered with the Crowne Plaza, so the hotel block is good for 2 nights before the conference and 2 nights afterwards. We have been given updates from the hotel, though, that they are filling fast. We already had to have extra days on the 20th, or extra rooms on the 20th. So it is happening here for this event, and we're excited about it. I echo everything that you say, Laura. We actually have partnered with Destination Cleveland on this conference, so all of our attendees will be getting Cleveland Script branded chapsticks and hand sanitizers and all those wonderful goodies that Destination Cleveland provides. So thanks for that shout out as well.
They're wonderful. It's a great organization.
All right. So we first met, I'm going to say about 7 or 8 months ago, kind of introducing the conference and with our hopes of potentially bringing it here, as this is my 2nd year serving as the conference chair. When we met with you, our president of AAUA, Sandra Affinito, and myself, you were so receptive and open-minded to bringing this event here. And we left both just like, yes, this is where we're going to host it. And so since that time, Cleveland State has become our host and also a sponsor of the conference. So what about the conference and specifically AAUA appeals to you and Cleveland State?
Well, because I'm evangelical about Cleveland, I'm always excited when people come to visit. But specifically for AAUA, running a higher ed institution is a complex business. It is a complex organization. Anybody who's dropping into a university or institution from a world outside of it will say, oh my gosh, I had no idea how complicated this is, which means it takes multiple levels and types of administration and leadership all across the organization. So the things that happen here in the president's office, in my office, are just a small microcosm of all of the administrative complexities of the organization. So of the institution. So AAUA as an organization recognizes that and understands that we need to support administrators and leaders at multiple levels and entry points in the organization. So I'm really proud to host that kind of an organization. I'm proud that here on campus, I believe we'll have presenters that sort of represent all the different types of leadership within this organization. And Matt, you know, I talked to you just recently. I'll have a leadership meeting with my cabinet later today. I need you there because you bring a level of administrative expertise that we don't really fully have on our cabinet right now. And to me, that signals that we all have to be rowing in the same direction, and to have an organization that reflects that is really valuable.
That's awesome. And something that I very much appreciate about you and your leadership style is bringing in different leaders at different levels as necessary and listening to experts in their field. So I love hearing that. The last thing I'm hoping you can touch on is one of our keynotes for this year's conference is Tim Renick, the executive director of the National Institute for Student Success, who I know is a partner of ours here at Cleveland State and that you've had the privilege of working with over the last year or so, maybe even a little bit longer. And I was hoping you can kind of just touch on what attendees might be able to expect as they hear from Tim if they're not familiar with him and his work on student success initiatives within higher education.
Yeah, so I've watched what Tim has done in his career for years, and he transformed the way we think about student advising. So I realize not everybody at this conference will be focused exclusively on student advising, but some will. And Tim is brilliant in understanding the core values of our students, the core needs of our students, and then how best to achieve those needs. So he has really transformed for us at CSU how we think about going from first-year advising to a model of academic coaching for all of our students. But then I think generally about administration, and one of the things I really appreciate about Tim is that over the course of his career and thinking about what ultimately became NIST, is that he's one of those really super talented people who can take a big idea and then break it down into implementation steps and actually get it done. I know a whole lot of academics, God bless us all, who have big ideas but haven't a clue how to implement it. And Tim said, this is a big, huge idea. It could transform the way we engage with students on campus. And here's step 1, 2, 3, and 250 to get there. And I know this because I've done it. And that's what I think you'll get from Tim as a keynote speaker, which is, I think, just a gift for all of us.
Yeah, we're very much looking forward to it. So thank you for your insights into that. We actually have him as a future guest of the podcast here shortly, too. So yeah, we'll be able to dive in a little bit to what he's going to talk about specifically, but I think that is a great introduction to him. And Laura, thank you for joining us. And I want to jump over to Eytan from CommonTime Pathways. This was actually, when you reached out to us, a new company that I had not heard of. So if you could introduce us to CommonTime Pathways and how you work with and within higher education.
Well, it's really exciting to be here, so thanks again for inviting me to join you, especially in this particular episode as we lead up to the conference. CommonTime Pathways is quite literally here to give you access to a completely unidentifiable pool of students that exists in the United States, and those are artists, specifically anyone with artistic intelligence. And we believe at CommonTime that the two biggest problems in higher ed in the next 20 to 25 years are going to be the way that an AI-enabled world challenges the return on investment, rethinking higher ed in that passion. But then at the same time, the demographic cliff, which we all know and have all been hearing about, which is going to shrink college-age pools of applicants to the tune of 3 million kids by 2031. And so our goal at CommonTime Pathways is to present the artist as the previously unreachable and now reachable young person who is not only able to help make sure colleges have stabilized enrollment during the demographic cliff, but the fact that those are the students who are going to be defining workplace success in an AI-enabled world. In a world where innovation is not going to be something that's required only at the upper echelons of business and in the workforce, but in every level, where students who can see around corners, or students who can think differently and divergently from their peers as creatives, as artists, as people who understand how to put on production, present an event, reach a specific audience, and then present their work in new, creative, thoughtful, and innovative ways, we think that artists are the key to what will be left when the pendulum swings back from STEM towards a liberal arts education as the primary reason why humans are at the center of an economy in the 50s.
And I had the privilege of meeting with you previously and kind of learning about it. And I'm like, wow, I think you guys would be a great partner for AAUA. So what about AAUA and this conference stood out to you as a good opportunity to sponsor and get your name out there a bit more?
So the AAUA's mission is extraordinarily resonant with what we do at CommonTime, which is to rethink the way higher education can function, and also to think creatively about ways in which we can sustain the ecosystem of higher education as a true American value proposition in moving into the middle of the 21st century. We think that humanized and human-centric education is critically important now, that a large number of the things that we do will be controlled by mindless automatons in the future, namely all of these AI agents that are coming to and fro and helping us do everything from read application essays to grade papers and detect use of AI. Isn't that just the most wonderful little irony ever? An AI bot to detect itself. I think that in the end, what we're trying to do with AAUA and why AAUA was such an interesting potential partner for us, is that you sit in the spaces of decision making where not only is the current student body your attention, but the value proposition of higher ed in the next 10, 20, 30, and 40 years. You're not planning now for what will happen in 2031. You're planning right now for what will happen in 2049. And we're excited to be a part of that because the kids who are being born now are not going to be in the same world that we're in currently. And the AAUA talks about that more than any other organization I have seen. And that's why I'm passionate about this partnership and excited to be here.
Awesome. We are as equally excited to have you guys there and be a big presence at our conference. I'll tell you, when I left our first discussion on bringing you on as a sponsor, I was like, wow, every college needs to have them on campus. Coming from an athletic background and doing athletic recruiting, I was like, this is a tech market that you never hear about as musicians. And even when you're looking at D3 institutions and you have athletic scholarships, there's oftentimes band and choir scholarships or musical stipends. And so I think it's an untapped market. So I love that you're filling this need within the field. And so to get a little more insight into what you're going to talk about with your sponsorship, you get an industry session that it can choose to go to. What can they expect to hear from you and learn if they do attend your session?
So we'd love to show AAUA how easy it is to leverage what's already happening at each of their institutions in order to access this pool of previously unreachable young applicants as early as 13 years old, the same way that athletic style recruiting exists. So CommonTime is early, predictive, secure athletic style recruiting for young people based on their artistic intelligence. Right now we serve musicians, but we're expanding to theater and dance in the coming school year. And behind those bowling pins is visual art and graphic design, film photography, architecture, culinary art, everything with a portfolio. And so ultimately what this allows us to do is take the faculty who are already in our programs, already reaching out to community members, already adjudicating conferences and festivals, already talking with high school music teachers and art teachers and dance teachers. These are things that are done primarily within an arts department or a music school. That doesn't happen in a necessarily biology or psychology or think about an English department. These professors tend not to reach out to the communities that are around them. They also tend not to put themselves out there the way that our arts and music teachers in particular already are. Every music professor attends a summer camp. Every music professor teaches and adjudicates at a state festival. Every one of them has a private studio on the side if that's what they need. Some of our faculty, especially in music, are adjunct faculty who work for multiple institutions and reach out to hundreds, if not thousands of young people every year. And so what we need, and what I'm hoping to show everyone at our industry session at the AAUA, is the ability to leverage their already existing activities to be able to reach not only the music majors who will fill their studios, but all of the sea of non-majors who are artistically capable, creative, intelligent young people who are prime recruiting targets based on their artistic intelligence and their place in the future of the workforce. And giving Laura and you, Matt, and your EVP and your of enrollment and everyone else the ability to find a 14-year-old that otherwise would not be on your radar and be able to talk with that student in a high-touch, impactful way so that you know the yield is there and that they can then make an impact the way that we know they will on student retention, on GPA, on mental health, on the artistic life of the campus, and on graduation rates, alumni engagement, and what we are developing data points right now to prove, which is workplace success in the AI-enabled world. So I'm super excited to present all this information to show everybody how it functions, much like Huddle or Max Preps or one of these athletics recruiting style platforms where you can see videos and read personal statements and see intent and then gather everything from a commitment from a 13-year-old to send you an application when they become a senior in high school. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to tell you about all these things. I'm really looking forward to visiting Cleveland, if not for any other reason than I get to go see some fun Broadway shows now. I'm really excited having, being a vocalist and performer myself. I am now even more excited for my trip.
Awesome. We are very excited to have you. I can attest that the Broadway series here is fantastic. I think this is such an untapped market. And when I was supervising choir, band, and theater at a different university, we launched our theater program. In the first year, it was 50 students, and we were a small private university. And there is great potential to grow enrollment through these activities.
growing enrollment through these activities is just the tip of the iceberg. Growing enrollment is the first step. It's what they do for the campus after they enroll that's truly spectacular. And this is one of my favorite realizations about the field. We recruit and enroll students for their extracurricular activities all day. And then when they come to our schools, they don't engage in those activities anymore. And so it's important for us to have those spaces for those students to do those things and build the life that we know makes higher ed worth living.
Awesome. Thank you.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Laura, Matt, Eytan, just already for a beautiful framing of our conference, where it's going to be, the kind of things we can look forward to, why it's important to attend. We all, I think, show fantastic and great motivation. And there's definitely a need to move higher ed into the future. And I think all three of you are doing just an amazing job of making that happen. So that said, Matt, I would love to toss it over to you and actually ask you a couple of questions to dig a little bit deeper into the conference and like specifically its structure. Can you walk us a little bit through it? What attendees can expect? What kind of different kinds of sessions and experiences people will have there?
Yes, certainly. And I think one of the benefits of this conference is how simplified this conference is. Each day will open with a plenary session to kick off. Day one is actually our presidential panel featuring President Bloomberg from here at Cleveland State, President Fisher at Baldwin Wallace, President Iwanenko at Gannon University, and President Mathis from the Connecticut Community College System. So they will talk and kick us off about the future of higher education. Day two, I will actually be hosting a fireside chat in the morning with President Comerford from Otterbein University on some of their innovative programs, including their middle management development program that their staff are enrolled in that give them the skills to advance to a vice president level, which I think is perfectly aligned with the AAUA mission. Then we'll jump into breakout sessions. And so we have 3 of those at every time slot. That's where our industry sessions are. We had 46 submissions for 13 sessions. And so really big pool, ended up with great session topics and presenters from all over the country. Day one, our luncheon is actually our AAUA National Award Ceremony. So this is included with the conference registration. It is a plated meal. There will be awards on career achievements, leadership, national awards for dissertations, unique programming, and on scholarly work. We also will have a graduate student and professional poster session area that'll be partnered where our sponsors are. So in addition to talking with sponsors, we're hoping to get additional presentations, especially from graduate students around the country on the research and projects they're doing related to higher education administration. And then we'll finish each day with a keynote. We already talked about Tim Renick and what he is going to talk about. His specific session abstract is already up on our website. And so he'll talk about the work that he does with over 170 different colleges and universities on transforming student success and retention using data and fixing administrative structures, which is usually the challenge that he identifies. He will highlight several concrete and scalable steps to improve outcomes for students while increasing revenue for your institutions. Since we have Laura here, Laura, can you maybe provide us some insight into the panel? And we have a wide range of types of institutions represented, one that just went through a recent merger and acquisition. And so what do you think we could expect to hear potential from the presidential panel?
Well, I think that, you could take a whole day just to talk about the merger of Gannon and Ursuline. I've been very involved with, on the periphery, and talking with the president of Ursuline during that transition. It's an object lesson in creativity. But so I'm sure that we'll touch a bit on that. But I think the panels of presidents, in some ways, if we do something like talk about enrollment, we all want to talk about how things are probably rosier than they really are sometimes. And that's never helpful to really anybody. If the theme of the conference is realizing the value proposition, what really can we be doing to think about the value proposition? So we've heard about the importance of the arts and inductive creative thinking in the future of our society as a whole. When we think about what we need to do to adapt and innovate in higher education to be relevant in a completely new normal, hearing from presidents and how they're thinking about that, I think, will underscore the importance of the conference overall and having leaders and administrators from all across campuses, because it cannot. Inductive, creative, innovative strategies in the future will not be led by one single person at the quote unquote top of the organization. That's not how we will create a strong, resilient future for higher ed. It's a very different kind of model we need for the future.
So on day 2, I see that the conference, and here, speaking of presidents and presidential panelists, we're going to have C. Scott Green, who's the president of the University of Idaho. Matt, what specifically do you know attracted him to AAUA and gave him a reason to join us, which we're very happy about, of course?
Yeah, I will flip that question. I think it was probably my consistent outreach to him to beg him to come and present for us. Because when we first came up with this theme, he was one of the first people that I thought of. He came from outside of higher education in the private sector, super successful on Wall Street and global finance markets, and then oversaw the largest law firm in America as a non-lawyer, as a managing partner. And so he had really unique experience coming into his first presidency, and he published a book, the University President's Crisis Handbook, that I think is a must-read for everyone in higher education administration. I've gone through it and really taken some of it into practice, and I think it brings to my thought is never waste a crisis. And so he has led initiatives that have transformed the University of Idaho through outside-the-box approaches. They've become an R1 Carnegie Research classification since he took over, increased enrollment, transformed their student success. And so I think his approach and just how he handled this and his success is just something that we all can learn from. And I couldn't think of a better way to close this conference.
And Matt, you mentioned there were 18 breakout sessions overall. You already mentioned there will be a couple of industry sessions. Can you give us a little bit of insight into some of the topics that our attendees will be able to choose from?
Yeah, certainly. And I think this is what really is the value of AAUA and what makes us so unique and beneficial to administrators. Since we don't have a singular focus, we have a broad range of topics that are including mission-centered storytelling, AI within degree programs, like specifically building degree programs with AI, university leadership pathways like the Auburn Aspire program that I know we'll hear on this podcast later on, unique financial models to develop revenue, so talking about different vouchers that are available, student engagement transcripts to build out the co-curricular piece, kind of like Eytan was talking about further beyond just things that are happening in the classroom, professional staff and university governance. As administrators, I think this is one thing that gets missed often. There's always a faculty senate, but there's oftentimes not a voice for professional staff within shared governance models. And then the overall athletics landscape. And the most exciting thing is the range of presenters that we have. We have institutions across the nation. We have presenters from NYU, Stanford, San Francisco Bay University, University of Montana, University of Washington. And we even have a senior fellow at the National Association of Higher Education Systems who's going to talk about their fellowship program and how the succession planning and leadership development can be embedded within institutions. You can find all of the sessions, presenters, and their abstracts directly on our website. If you click the title of the presentation, the abstract will pop up. But I encourage you all to take a look at this because I really think this is what makes our conference different.
And just as a reminder, that's aaua.org/conference, so really easy to remember. We've already heard from Eytan about CommonTime Pathways, and Matt, you mentioned the Higher Education Resource Services, better known as HERS, who will be sponsoring the cocktail reception. What other sponsors can attendees expect to see and connect with?
Yeah, in addition to those, and again, I think this also aligns with our breakout sessions. We don't have a narrow focus on who our sponsors are because we'll have deans, we'll have provosts, we'll have presidents across the gamut of the administration. And so that's what our sponsors reflect. So we have Collegiate Financial, who does retirement planning for administrators in higher education specifically. Education Dynamics will be here. Kaplan All Access is a new sponsor this year. CFM Partners is somebody who I've been working with. They're a compliance and policy management tool. They are new in the higher education landscape out of DC. They are a new sponsor as well. And they're in Real Recruit, who offers the service of anonymous confidential reporting that we onboarded this year at Cleveland State. They are also joining on. And we have a couple that we're still working on. So we have a really good range of sponsors for this event.
and we truly appreciate all their support. So to wrap things up, one thing that we pride ourselves on at AAUA is that we envision the future of higher education, and we help leaders build the capacity to make the necessary changes happen. Laura and Eytan, what is your vision for the future of higher education, and how does your work and your institution do to help our industry live up to its full potential? And if it's okay, Eytan, I'm going to start with you because I would love to have Laura as the final word of this
Not
conversation.
at all. Not at all. The vision for the future of CommonTime Pathways is that students across the globe can be valued for their artistic intelligence in the higher ed recruiting infrastructure. That it's not simply the lacrosse students and the cornhole students who get full ride. I did say cornhole, that's correct. There are students out there getting scholarships for athletics who are very deserving. But the infrastructures that currently exist are inequitable and don't provide real universal access to the students who we know higher education is desperately seeking, the students who can think around corners, be innovative and creative in their thinking. And in the year 2050, the goal for CommonTime Pathways is to connect students and universities and colleges around the globe based solely on the desire to keep the economy and the world as human-centered and artful as possible.
That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. And I completely agree. We want to create pathways for graduates to be successful in their life. But what I want to do as a career higher education professional is to build the kind of society I want myself and my children and my children's children and their children to live in, which is certainly people prepared for work, yes, and also with an understanding of history and the human condition and the kind of ethics that we want to surround ourselves with. So it's nothing short of, like I say, creating the kind of world we want to be a part of. That's what we should be doing in higher education.
And the world revolves around people. And I'm so happy,
Absolutely
if I
right.
may add that I think there's more and more of a realization now amongst leaders in higher education that people have to come first. We have to serve the people across and throughout our institutions. And I truly appreciate the work that you all do to make that happen. So this is really encouraging. So thank you for that. All right. Well, Laura, Matt, Eytan, thank you so much for your time today, for your leadership, for your innovation, and for your unwavering support in making the 2026 AAUA conference not only happen, but also a great success that we know it will be. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the meantime, we will continue to have an exciting lineup of guests planned over the next few months, including many who will be speaking and presenting at our national conference in October, again at Cleveland State University. So please stay tuned for the announcement of upcoming episodes. And in the meantime, please visit AAUA.org/conference to check out the conference schedule, as Matt explained earlier, to register and to become a member. And of course, to also check out the other podcast episodes. And as a reminder, the early bird registration at a discounted rate for the conference will end on August 16th. Thank you again. And until then, take care and see you soon.